Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today in my kitchen. Today I wanted to show you the art of preserving. And with strawberry season right around the corner, I thought a little strawberry jam might be just the thing. So people have asked me over and over, what's the trick? And really there isn't a trick, but it's a lot of setup and having your things ready and being in a super clean environment. That's really the thing about preserving, is that you don't want to have any contaminants in any of the process, meaning your jars, your utensils, all of those sort of things. So that's what we're going to kind of walk through today with a very simple jam recipe with strawberries. So you could see from the photo when we started that I've already diced up the strawberries. This is a standard recipe that you'll find in any of the Sure Gel packets, which is how we started out here. So it's the basic recipe. The only thing that I like to add to my strawberry is a little bit of lemon juice, and it kind of cuts the sweetness a little bit. And one of our best sellers actually is our strawberry rhubarb jam, and it does that same thing where that tartness kind of brings the strawberry more into focus, really. It kind of cuts that sweetness so you really enjoy the taste of the strawberry. So let's get started. You saw that I had the strawberries already chopped up, but what I like to use is good old-fashioned potato masher to just literally smash up the berries. What that does is a couple things. It distributes the strawberries more evenly, and also the naturally occurring thickener in jam, which is what our Sure Gel is pectin. And the pectin that occurs naturally in every fruit is in the skin of the fruit. So by smashing or blending sometimes, whatever fruit you're using, you release more of that pectin so that you'll get a better set. You know, it'll be firmer in the jar. So I found that this strawberry jam works really good with a, like I say, good old-fashioned elbow grease and a potato masher. So once I've kind of got it all worked up, I'm gonna get my berries on the stove. I'm gonna add my lemon juice. I just have like a tablespoon of lemon juice. Get that mixed up really well. And then we're gonna take it to the stove. So here we are at the stove. So I'm gonna put this on like a medium-high flame. And I'm going to add just a little half a teaspoon of butter that's gonna cut down the foam that's gonna be created when this starts cooking. And I have found that the butter is also a really nice indicator as to when the fruit is warm enough to add our pectin, because we don't want it to be in there as a solid lump. So once this is nice and warm and getting bubbly and my butter's melted, I know that I can add my pectin. So I'm just going to keep stirring it and watching. And then you'll notice I have another pot over here with all of my lids in it, all my caps, I should say, for the jars. And what we want to do, I have done it already, but what you want to do is put those in some water and boil them for at least 3 minutes. A little longer is okay, don't forget about them completely, and then just hold them in the warm water. What this does is a couple things. Again, we want everything super clean, and the caps are now then sterilized, and the rubber around the cap is soft, so that when we put it on that jar, it's going to form a really nice seal on the jar. So like I said, I'm just going to hold them in that warm water until we're ready to put them on our jars. I also have another great big pot of water waiting for me that's just starting to bubble. And that'll be the final process for our jars once they're full. Just have to be patient. Like I said, strawberries will be coming in season here. May is strawberry month here in Michigan, and you'll find yourself with strawberries at the market that are the best ones to get. I know you can get them all year now and everything, but Michigan strawberries are the best berries. I truly believe that. Grew up picking them with my mom, and there's something about getting them right off the vine. So if you find yourself getting them, you know, enjoy them for a breakfast snack or on your granola, or even a late night, you know, snack instead of a dessert. But if you have a few left, what I do is just chop them up and freeze them, and then when I have enough, then I make a little batch of jam. It'll taste even more better in December when the strawberries are long gone. So my butter's all melted, didn't take very long. And I'm gonna add my pectin. And you'll find doing it this way, preheating it a little bit, like I say, the pectin distributes throughout the berries a whole lot better. Doesn't turn into a solid lump and create havoc in your berries. I got some little bubbles starting. So the next thing to watch for is that consistent bubble. We want to make sure that our pectin cooks up really well and is dissolved before we add our sugar. So again, the preparedness is the thing. Have all your tools ready. I've got my sugar all weighed out, minus that 1 cup I was going to show you. Let me grab that. I wanted to be sure and show you how you need to measure accurately. So you'll see I scooped and I scraped that cup so that I know it's exactly 1 cup. I think that's the thing that scares people with jam making, is very similar to baking. You have to be pretty precise. You don't want to alter things too much or it doesn't work out, doesn't set. However, strawberry jam that doesn't quite set is still just as delicious, and you can put it on your ice cream sundae or just have a napkin ready, right? So I've got some nice consistent bubbles. You can see what's happening here. And I'm going to put the sugar in all at once and stir it up. So it really doesn't take a lot of berries to make a batch of jam. Like I say, if you have a few left here and there and you cut them up and throw them in the freezer, this was 750 grams of strawberries, which isn't quite 2 pounds of berries. So really, like I say, it doesn't take much. And rather than getting tired of them at the end of the week, if you've bought some, chop them up, throw them in the freezer, and when you have enough for some jam, make a little batch. So again, we're just waiting. We're going to wait for this to boil to a full boil, meaning when I stir, it's still boiling. And that's really important to get that final set on your pectin. Once again, let's be patient. If you're going to stand and babysit it, you can have the heat pretty high, but you don't want to walk away. So I can talk about the water bath canner that's sitting here in front of us while we wait for this to boil. The water bath canner is an old-fashioned way of canning, but it's super effective. The important part with that is you want to make sure that your jars are completely covered by at least an inch of water. Again, you can have less water as long as the jars are covered, but if you walk away and it boils the water off, then you're in trouble. So they need to be submerged all through the process. So I find it's better to just have extra water, have it ready to go, because the minute we put the caps on these jars and we seal them, they need to go right in the water bath. So we've got a little contraption, we're going to drop them, but I'm just holding that water so that when I'm ready, it's ready to go. The other thing is, once it is boiling and I get close, I'm going to turn this off. Because what we don't want to happen is we don't want to shock our jars, putting them in there and have them crack and break. Then it's really a mess and you basically have to throw it all away because there might be glass in your food. So we don't want that to happen. It's a really, it's not something that happens often, so inspect your jars very well, make sure there's no cracks. Be super careful if you're recycling glass that you look at them very well and that there's not any little fissures, because when you put something hot in it, and especially then boil it, it's going to want to break. So be super careful in recycling the glass. I have also found that there's one way to ensure that they're pretty safe, and that is to actually submerge your glass jars in the boiling water, if you don't have another way of sterilizing the jars, that's the best way to do it. And then you'll find out before there's product in them that they're not gonna hold up to that heat. And it also sterilizes your jars. So I have already done that before you joined us today, so that's a good tip for you to keep in mind if you're gonna, especially if you're recycling glass, which I'm an avid recycler, so it works out really well to test them that way. So this is gonna go really quickly again because it's not a lot of volume here. And the other way I can get through this very quickly is you'll see I'm working with a pretty wide pan. So I have a lot of surface area with my burner versus using a smaller pan that's taller. Then you have to really be diligent in stirring because the bottom is going to be a lot hotter than the top surface. But by working with something that's, wide, I only really have an inch depth in my pot, so it's going to cook very quickly. I don't know if that's the thing that intimidates people too, is that they think, oh, I have to have a lot. You don't have to go to the farmer's market and buy a bushel of berries to make jam. You can buy a quart or 2 quarts of jam, or of 2 quarts of fruit, and you're going to get 8 or 10 jars of jam at the end. There's also some great low sugar recipes that Sure Gel puts out, and they also put out a low sugar pectin if you are one of those folks that are watching your sugar. Sometimes I have found that they just don't set, and my customers are fickle sometimes with the jam that doesn't want to set all the way, and many things can factor into that. We have found if we get fruit right after a rain that has a higher water content, it won't want to set. So those are things that can be frustrating in jam making, but again, it doesn't change the flavor. It's still delicious. Use it on your ice cream sundae. Okay, so we're boiling now to what we call a full boil. As you see, when I stir, it keeps boiling. That's considered a full boil, full rolling boil. And at this point, we need 1 minute, and I'm literally going to set my timer for 1 minute. And then we'll be ready to move back to the table and get this in the jars. See you there. So here we are. We've moved our pot of jam off the stove and over to the table. I'm putting on gloves at this point. We just buy latex gloves, which of course here in the food business we all are very used to wearing. I highly recommend these latex gloves when you're canning because it's another layer of protection against what I like to call the molten lava of jam. So sugary syrup, it's super hot. Be very careful at this point. So we've got our jars all lined up. Again, have your things ready. I've sterilized these jars. I've sterilized my caps. I have my water bath canner insert ready to go. And I have found a pitcher is the easiest way to transport the jam from the pot to the jar. So if you're using a narrow mouth jar, you're going to want a funnel. It gets very tedious at that point, so I recommend a wider mouth jar and a pitcher. And you'll see I have a drip tray to control my mess. And what we want to make sure we do is we go 1/4 inch from the top as we fill. You want to have just the right amount of air space for that jar to pull the vacuum and seal. If you go too much, you don't have enough space for that air gap, it won't seal. Same with too little. So 1/4 inch really is the key there. And you'll see I have a lot of jars sitting out here. Again, I've learned the hard way. More is better, because once you get to the end of your jars, you don't have time, once this is ready to get it in the jars, to start cleaning jars and caps. You need to be ready. So more is always better. So you'll see I'm pulling these out of the warm water. Do not touch the middle of the cap. Again, we have sterilized these. We want to keep them that way, so don't touch. You'll see I wiped the edge of that to make sure it's super clean. And I'm going to one by one get those on. I don't want to pour more than I can cap and band pretty quickly. And I'm just finger tightening them. Do not crank down on them hard, or you don't leave enough of an air gap for that vacuum to take place. I'm going to set these in here. Just tight. And then I'll do a couple more. This is a great time to start thinking about doing these things from the farmer's market. You can pick up a couple quarts, stock your pantry, and I don't know about you, but that beautiful red looks like holiday to me. Somebody would be very happy if you made them some homemade jam. Great hostess gift. And again, if you don't want to take on this project, we do a lot of this here, so we're happy to share our pantry with you. Come on by and see us. We got lots of flavors we do all year. And we also make some amazing cocktails with our jams. So if you get thirsty, feel like adventuring, try one of those too. We love to hear from our customers too about different things that they do with our jams, so please share and let us know if you come up with some awesome ideas. And I think I got one more at this point. It's good to the last drop is what I was taught. Waste not, want not. And if you have a jar that isn't quite full at the end, just put that one in your fridge and use it first. Because who wants to wait, right? It's ready to eat as soon as it sets up. Look at that. Perfect. Perfect. It's a little bit shy actually, but if I scrape it out, I get the perfect jar. One more cap. One more band. And we're ready to go to the canner. So we're going to drop these in, and remember that water was just boiling a minute ago. However, I'm still going to put these in slowly, and I'm kind of just acclimating them to their environment. And you can see I'm an inch underwater. We want at least that. And now I can turn the gas back on and let it go. And we want to bring this back to a boil before we start our timing. When you start to see steady bubbles that maintain, start your timer. And we're going to time these for 10 minutes. And then we'll be ready to pull them out. And there's our 10-minute timer. You can see that that bubble maintained and we're still covered, which is super important. Again, keep an eye on them because you don't want to have the water boil off. But if you start with plenty to start with, you should be fine. Let that stop a minute and bring it right over here to a tray. You don't want to travel very far with these boiling hot. So I'm going to pick up the whole tray and I'm going to bring them over here to the table. And again, I'm wearing my gloves, so I have some added protection from that boiling water. I'm moving quickly because yes, they are very hot. You can also buy a jar lifter to grab them with, and that is a super handy tool. If you're new to this, you might want to invest in one of those. They're just a few bucks. They have wooden handles and they grab like a tong, but they're the shape of the jar. And then what I want to do though is I want to blot the water off the tops, because what's going to happen now in the cooling process is they're going to seal, and I don't want them to suck that water into the jar either. I have a dry towel too, now that I got the bulk of it. And when they do start to seal, you'll hear the little ping when it pulls that lid down. You'll hear them start to make a noise. And that might take all night. It might be an overnight process depending on how warm the room is and where you put them. I suggest putting them somewhere where it's cooler so that they cool faster and you get a better vacuum on them the faster that they do cool. But don't panic if it doesn't happen in just an hour or so. Again, it might take overnight. But in the morning, set them somewhere cool, leave them alone, don't turn them over, don't mess with them. In the morning, what you want to do is test that they have pulled the lid down. They should not move. You can see there's a little bit of spring in these because they're all, they have pressure under them that's pushing the lid up. And what you want to see is that concave cap. When that happens and they're all sealed and there's no play in the caps, you can actually remove the band. So that is actually something that you should do, because for two reasons. The only reason this ring is on here is to hold the cap while the vacuum is being created. Once that's done, the ring comes off. You can clean them and put them away for the next time that you're canning, and then the cap is secured. If it should open itself, you're going to see very quickly that it opened, and you need to put it in the refrigerator or use it right away, or throw it away if you didn't catch it. All right? So that pretty much concludes our jam making today. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I hope you can come see us and check out our pantry wall, and we'd love to hear your suggestions. And of course, stop by and try one of our cocktails with our awesome jams. See you again.